So let's begin then. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I'm gonna add it to the stage here. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Bella and Javier. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about Latitude. Again, this is the first webinar we do, so I'm going to try to cover all the basics, starting from what do we do at Latitude, what's a workspace for data analysts. I'm going to go through most of the features of the product, and then I'll leave some time for questions and answers. So the first thing I want to share, okay. So this is our home screen. And I usually use it to explain what we do because it's our best marketing asset. So basically, Latitude is a workspace for data analysts. We bundle into the same application many of the different features or tools that you see in the data stack or in the market to make your lives easier. Basically, we allow you to go from raw data to full final report in a matter of minutes. You can do it like 10 times faster than in any other app. So we also integrate with any tool in your stack, or most of the tools in your stack, like any database, any data warehouse or data lake, or even CSV files. So you can just drag and drop them into the canvas, as I'll show you later. And what we offer is, apart from an infinite collaborative canvas that we're going to cover today, we also offer features like data snapshots by dropping CSVs into the canvas, as I said. I'm actually going to show you a preview of our data profiler, which we've been working on. So it's a beta, and we'll see how that goes. And I'm also going to be showing you how to use the built-in AI assistant to generate your queries, among some of the other features that we have. So let's just go right into the product. I'm going to log in. And the first thing I'm going to show you is how to set up your data sources. This is not needed in order to start using the product. And by the way, I didn't mention, but you can use the product for free completely. We have a personal plan where you can just sign up and you can create up to 3 projects with us and just use it indefinitely. But the first thing I'm going to show you is how to connect your data sources. For databases and data warehouses, the easiest thing to do is just go into settings down here, and then into data sources on the left side. And this is the list of the data sources we have added into our production account. This is our production account. If you just click on add new data source, you'll be able to see all the different ones we support right now. Then when you go inside, it's just following the instructions. You'll find them here on the right side. For example, this is the configuration for BigQuery, but it's very easy. It's just the standard procedure for connecting to these data sources. Now that we've covered how to connect data sources, I'm gonna go ahead and show you an actual project that we've built so that you can see what the final output looks like. Today, we're going to be working with our classic dataset, which is the Netflix catalog that we offer also for free when you go into a project, as I'll show you later. But I'm going to show you what the final version looks like. So if we just go here, you'll see that this is my dashboard. Okay, I'm analyzing this table down here that I have. And we're just plotting, for example, the titles released over the years. We are showing a distribution between how many movies and shows there are. And there's even some fancy controls over here to change the data with. This is the final dashboard. This is what we're going to be building today. But I'm also going to show you the canvas view. So this is what you would share with any business user or any stakeholder that needs to access this data. But this is configured in a canvas, okay, which is like the main starting point of any project. I'm not going to go too deep into this particular project because we're going to be replicating it. So I'm just going to show you here that the data is coming from a Postgres database in this case. We're going to be using a CSV file. I'm filtering some data. I'm already running some visualizations, and then I'm also doing some SQL transformations, okay? But again, I'm not going to go deep into this right now. I'm just going to try to replicate it with all of you. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new data app, a new project. In this case, you can start with a template, but it doesn't make sense. We're going to start with an empty app because you need to see how the app works. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. This is our blog gallery or data catalog. I'm going to close this for now because we don't need it. We're going to be working with this sample file that you see here. This is the exact same thing you're going to find in your Latitude account. You can just drag and drop any CSV file that you have in your computer, or just go ahead and use ours. So I just click the button. And as you can see, this is our data set that we're going to be working with today. There are some columns like an ID, which is probably unique for all of these titles. We have the title of the show or movie, the type, whether it's a show or a movie. We have some descriptions, release year, and some other columns that might be useful later on. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the profiler. Okay, this is, again, the feature we have in beta, so it might not work as expected, but when we release it publicly, it will be completely polished, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and select the block, okay? When I select any block, I can see some of its details right here in the inspector. So in this case, I can see the exact output of the block. In this case, it doesn't make a lot of sense because the data snapshot is already showing me the actual results. But I can do this for any block in the canvas. I can also see the console, where I can see when was the last time this query was executed, how long it took, and the actual SQL query we're running. If you're curious about the technical details, whenever you upload a CSV to Latitude, what we actually do is we transform it into a Parquet file. We store it in an S3 bucket, and we put DuckDB on top of it so that you can query it. Let's go ahead and use the profiler, as I said. So I'm just going to go into this tab here in the inspector, the profiler, and I'm going to hit run. Okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to run some profiling queries for all of the columns in the data set. That should be showing up here at any second. Again, this is a product that's in beta, so hopefully it will work. Let's see. No, it's not gonna work today. Let's see if I recreate the sample file. Let's see if I can get it to work. Let's see. I'm gonna run the profiler again. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. So in this case, what we're doing multiple queries for each of the columns that you have in your data set. The first thing you can see is, apart from the title of the column over here, you can also see the type. So whether it's a string, an integer, float, etc. You can see its shape, which means it depends on the type of the column. So for example, for strings, what we do is we show you the unique values that this column has. So for example, you can tell that the type column has only 2 unique values, which matches what we see in the data set, no? Like the type column has shows and movies. But this helps us make sure that we don't have any rogue values, we don't have any null values, and so on. For numbers, for example, we show you a histogram of how the values are aggregated. So for example, in the release year column, I'm going to click on it so that you can see it better. This is the histogram. So as you can see, the values range from 1945 to 2022. It's a bit of an old data set. And you can see that most of the titles are grouped at the end of this period. So you can see that the catalog really starts in 2002, and then it keeps growing, especially with titles released after 2014. We also show you the distribution of the first 20 results here, grouped by the number of rows with coincidences. So in this case, you can see that the most titles were released in 2019, for example. Some other cool things is that, for example, here in genres, we see that we have 1,700 unique values. The total size of the data set is close to 6,000. So that gives us some very important information. And we can also see the null values. So for example, we can see that half or close to half of the age certification column, the values are just empty, as you can see here. For seasons, it also makes sense, no, that for most values, this 64% shows us that there's a lot of titles that aren't TV shows, because movies don't have seasons. and so on. So this basically helps me get like a really good understanding of my data set, and the shape of it. What else? So okay, this is the profiler. We're gonna be adding a lot more cool stuff. Like for example, you're gonna be able to display the evolution of like timestamps or dates and how many rows are in each of the data points or the date points. But we'll be releasing this this month, so you guys can try it out. Enough with the profiler. I'm gonna go back to the inspector now, and we can start working with our data. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, if you remember from the profiler, most of the titles were released after 2002, more or less. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a filter so that I can only see the results or the titles released after the year 2000, for example. So in order to do any transformations into any of these blocks in the canvas, you can just connect them together at the bottom of them. So for example, here I'm just going to click the plus button. I'm going to go into the where block. So we have our entire block gallery down here. So as you can see, we have many transformations you can use, even code blocks, as I'll teach you later, some visualizations and some variables. But in this case, since I only want to filter the data, I'm going to add a where block. Here, I can see the columns available for me. So in this case, I'm going to set that the release year is greater or equal than 2000. If we run this block and select it and go to the inspector, we can see the results. In this case, it makes sense to check them in the inspector because here's where we can see that the release year, if we actually sort it, for example, ascendant, there's nothing below the year 2000 as expected. I also want to check only the titles with good quality for my analysis. So I'm going to go ahead and add another filter here where I'm saying that the IMDb score is greater or equal than, let's say, 8, which is a good score for IMDb. Let's play again. You can see how the number of rows changed. We came from all close to 6,000, as we saw earlier. Now we are playing with around 500 titles. And this is the list of them. Okay, right. So let me just go back real quick. Yeah, perfect. The first thing I'm gonna do in terms of visualizations is I'm gonna try to replicate the chart with the difference between the shows and the movies, showing that distribution, but only on this filtered data set. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add a pie chart directly here. I'm gonna click it to configure. And then in dimension, I'm gonna add the type, because that's what tells me whether it's a show or a movie. And then in measure, I'm just gonna do a count of all the distinct IDs. Okay. If I click play, you guys can see that the distribution in terms of titles released after the year 2000 with an IMDb score greater or equal to 8, there's a lot more shows than movies. So that's quite interesting. Our next step is going to be, I'm going to be plotting the distribution between movies and shows over a timeline based on the release year. That's also super easy to do. I'm just going to create a new visualization right here. I'm going to do a line chart in this case. Let me close the inspector because I don't need it right now. I'll move this over here. I'm going to move this chart over here. And then just configuring it very easily. So the first thing is the release year. In the dimension, I'm going to sort it ascendant so that we see the progression over the years. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a count distinct of the IDs, just the same as I was doing. If I just click this, we're going to get the total titles released throughout the years, just very easily like that. But I want to split it between shows and movies. No, so that's very easy. I'm just going to click here to group by the type. If I click play again, you'll see that the distribution is shown here. So now we get this really cool timeline displaying the TVs and the TV shows and the movies released over the years. Again, using these filters. If, for example, I want to check this distribution without applying the filters, there's many ways I can do it. I can, for example, just disconnect this from here and connect this block up top. So this is one of the cool things about the canvas. No, I can just play again, and now my data will be unfiltered. So as you can see, it starts in 1945, and it shows me the entire distribution. And this is just a quick thing that I was able to do because I'm using Canvas to do data analysis. And another way would be, for example, to just toggle off any of these filters. So for example, let's check all of the data from 2000, but regardless of the IMDb score. And as you can see, the data changes. So it's a very quick way for me to explore and iterate on my data. I'm gonna set this back to on. I'm gonna play this again so that we have the latest data. Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. So now I'm just gonna move this over here. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be working on some SQL to modify my data. So I know that this data set particularly, it has some columns like the production countries or the genres that are arrays coming from whatever system that they use to export this data. No? But I can't work with these arrays from SQL directly. So for example, I would like to see how many titles were released in Great Britain or in the US throughout the years, and how many shows and movies and so on. So I want to do some distributions based on the main production country, but in some cases, I'm getting a list of multiple. No? So in order to access the first one, I'm going to do a quick data transformation, and I'm going to do it in SQL. So in this case, I'm just going to click on the code block to link it directly to this filter block. I'm going to make it a bit larger. And for this, I have my query prepared because usually when I try to write SQL in live, it never goes well. So I already have most of my queries prepared. In this case, it's very simple. I'm just adding a new column here where I'm stripping, well, I'm actually changing some the shape of the array and making it into a real SQL array. No? So I'm just going to play this. I'm going to click on the inspector to see it. And let's check at the end. We'll see that the clean countries, this should be working. Interesting. There's probably something wrong with my query again. Let's see. Clean countries, interesting. Maybe it's because I tried with a different data set. Let me just quickly go back. I'm gonna use the actual database that we have. This is the same data, as you'll see. If I just play this and show you in the inspector, you'll see that it's the same data, but maybe the query, since the system is different, wasn't working properly. Let's just reconnect this. This is also an example of how easy it is to just swap any data set. Doesn't matter where it is. You can just change the block, and then everything down here will still work the same. So I'm just gonna click run the entire tree using the Alt button in my keyboard or the option in Mac. As you can see, the charts work the same. The pie chart also works the same. Let's see if it fixed this query. Yeah, perfect. So as you can see, we now have this clean countries column with a much better looking array that I can now use in my further explorations. Right, perfect. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I wanna see, as I said before, like the distribution of titles released based on the first country or the main country where they were released in. So to do that, I need to do another data transformation just to see how every country, how many titles it has. So I'm just gonna create a new code block here. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, make it a bit larger. And I'm gonna, again, paste my query as I have in the other side. So in this case, what are we doing? We're just selecting the first instance in the clean countries array. This is just an assumption that we're making for this data set, for this sample data set. Might not be correct, but that's what we're rolling with today. So that's going to be my clean country. And then I'm just grouping by it and getting the count of titles, no? Limiting to the first 10 countries by number of titles. Let's just play it, see the results. Perfect. So as you can see, the US is the main country where titles were released in the Netflix catalog, and then we can see the others here. Since this is not a great way of visualizing data, let's just plug it into a bar chart so that we can see it visually. In this case, I'm gonna configure that the dimension is a clean country. The metrics is just the sum of the title count. It doesn't matter because it's only one result per country. I'm gonna sort it ascendant so that we can see a progression. And what else? I am just gonna hit play. Okay, perfect. There you go. So as you can see, I'm actually gonna sort it descendant because it looks better. Okay. So as you can see, this is the distribution of titles released in each of the countries that we have in our dataset. Cool. Awesome. There's something else I want to do, and is visualizing this data also split by movies and shows, as we did before with the pie chart and the evolution. No? Instead of modifying my query so that it shows up here, I'm just going to create a new query using the same data set, again, using the visual canvas that we have here. Because I want to keep this chart. I don't want to modify it, or I don't want to modify this data set. I just want to work with the same clean countries column that we have here, but not touch this part. So I'm just going to move this over here. And I'm just going to create a new code block connected to the data set that we have here. In this case, I'm also going to copy and paste the query. And what we're doing here is really similar to what we have on the other side. But I'm also just adding the sum of all the movies and shows, depending on the country. Let's just run the query, see that it worked. Perfect. So as you can see, it made the distribution right here between movies and shows. And now I just have to plug this into a chart. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm still going to use a bar chart for this. So let's put it here, make it a bit bigger, and then configure it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just the country that I mentioned, just as I did in the other chart. And then I'm going to do the sum of the movie rate, sorry, of the sum of the movies. Let's see if it works. Perfect. So as you can see, there were 37 movies in the US, 53 in India, and so on. And I'm going to add a new series where I want to show the shows. Click play, and there you go. That's the distribution. You can obviously sort this in any way you want, like ascendant from the shows, or descendant from the movies, or alphabetically from the countries. You can just set up the visualization in any way you want, obviously. Cool. Awesome. So apart from this, I also want to see the table in my final dashboard. So remember that this is just the data exploration, but I'm looking forward to building this dashboard now. So I want to show the table of all the titles that we're considering for this analysis. And in this case, I'm just going to click to add a new block under the where we're filtering all the data we're playing with. And I'm going to add a rearrange block. Okay, just going to close this real quick. I'm going to add a rearrange block because I don't want to show all the columns that are coming from my data set in this table. I just want to show the relevant ones. So in this case, I'm going to hide all the columns. I'm just going to show the title, move it at top. I'm going to show the description. I'm going to show the type because we're also playing with that data. So I'm going to reposition this, the release year, and let's just show the production countries and the IMDb score. Okay. Just gonna move these columns up here so that we can see them. Perfect. If I just click play on this and show the inspector again, you can see that these are the columns that I want to show. So I'm just gonna plug this into a table that we can add later to the view where I'm gonna show the dashboard. Cool. So this is my table visualization right here, very easily. Awesome. So this is more or less what we wanted. There's one last thing missing that I'm going to show you with variables, because I want to give my users some control over this data. No? So I might want to give them control over the release year so that they can see other years. I might want to give them control over the IMDb score so that they can see other quality movies and shows and so on. To do so, I'm going to create a couple of variables here. To create variables, you can use our toolbar down here. The second item is variables. And in this case, I'm going to create a text variable. I just click to add it. I'm going to call this year so that I can differentiate it from the other. And here, I'm just going to make the same. I'm just going to write 2000 because this is the same thing we have in our where. Now, the cool thing about variables is that you can use them in where blocks or code blocks. It doesn't matter. This should be here. Okay. We can use it in where blocks or code blocks. It doesn't matter. And to do so, in this case, I'm going to do it in the where block. So instead of setting the year right here to 2000, I'm going to use bracket add to reference another block in this same canvas. This is proprietary syntax for Latitude. I'm just going to write year, close the brackets, and that's it. Now, whenever you run this query again, we're going to use the value that you added to this variable here. Let's see it. I'm going to play it, select it, and open the inspector. And as you can see, it's still 2000. If I change this to 1945, for example, and I just rerun the query, you'll see that we can see other release years in this column. So it works. Perfect. I'm going to put it back to 2000. And I'm now going to create another variable just to do the same for the IMDb score. Move the two of them here. This is going to be called IMDb score. The name. And here I'm just going to, again, set it to 8 and just change it real quick here. Perfect. So this should work the exact same way it was working before. Yeah, 468 rows. Perfect. And that's it. I think this is good enough configuration for my dashboard right here. And this is just enough for me to create a view. How do I create a view or a dashboard so that I can share this with other users or stakeholders that are not so comfortable using the canvas? It's really easy. So let's just select the blocks that I want to add to my view. Those are the visualizations and the variables up here. So I'm just gonna drag and drop to select them. I'm gonna hit Shift and I'm gonna click on all the other charts that we have in our canvas and the table. And that's it. And once I have everything that I want to add selected, I'm just gonna go up here and click the plus button. And this will create a view for me. The cool thing about Latitude is that this view is already interactive. So if you change this year to 1945 and click Run View, I have edited nothing about this view, just selected the blocks and added them here. I'm going to click Run. You can see that all the charts already changed to reflect the new data in the variable. So this is just very, very easy to set up. You can obviously edit this view and make it however you like. So for example, I can add the columns here, the variables here. I'm going to move this Run View button. Let's see if I can do it. Yeah. Oop. No, not this one. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to move the charts here. I'm going to add this other one here too. And then finally this one. And then I have more space for my table, for example. I hopefully can move this. No, it's not working. I'm just going to add a new one and remove this one. Perfect. And that's it. So that was a very, very quick way for me. Oh, I missed one down here, but it's okay. Looks good enough. I'm just going to lock the view again. And this is the look of my dashboard. Again, this is fully interactive. You can also add text blocks, forgot to say. So in these text blocks, for example, let's just add it here. I'm going to move it up top if I can. Yes, perfect. And this text blocks, you can write any markdown that you want to style the text. So for example, this is Netflix data set. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to make it smaller. You can add images. You can embed Loom or YouTube videos to explain dashboards and so on. So it's really, really handy. Just going to log it again. And this is what it looks like. That's mostly how Latitude works end to end. So going from raw data, doing some transformations, doing some visualizations, and then building a view. This view to share, you can just copy and share the URL with anyone. Or if they have access to your workspace, obviously, or you can just publish to web, copy this URL, and then share this with anyone, and they'll be able to just see the dashboard that you build and nothing else. They won't be able to access your account or access any of your data or anything like that. They will just access whatever you built for them. So this is a really quick way to show and share any visualizations and dashboards that you make with Latitude. And that's it. As I said, I wanted to leave some time for questions. So I'm just gonna go back into the chat and see if you guys have any. Cool, perfect. So the first question we have is, hi, sir, may I know what API is this? I would love more if you can rephrase your question, because I'm not sure what part you refer to exactly, but I'm happy to answer if you rephrase it. More questions. Is there a max size data that you can run the profiler against? No, and this is very, very important. I actually can do a bit of a deep dive here. If you remember, well, I can just run the profiler again, but anyway, the profiler, right now how it works is it doesn't matter the data source that you have because we're just running the queries there. So if you connect, for example, here, the Postgres database, I can just run the profiler. And what this will do is it's going to run a bunch of really simple and quick queries against your data set, just requesting the data with SQL. And that works for data sets of any size. Now, if you have a data set like a table that's under 10,000 rows, we'll actually run the profiler in your machine. So it's going to be a lot faster than running it against the remote source. So for data sets under 10,000 rows, it's going to go really fast because we use DuckDB in the front end to allow you to do those queries that fast. So good question. More questions. I don't see any more in the chat, so if you guys have any, let me know. While we wait for more questions, actually, Ferran comes in with the exact question I was going to answer, so perfect. Is it possible to create data models with Latitude? Very good question. So right now, the feature we have is called models for this, and a model basically allows you to use any query that you set up with Latitude in any of your projects. Let's see how it works. So for example, here, we said that here, for example, I was cleaning up my data, no? As I needed to get the countries in the right shape so that I can use them later on in different arrays. So what I can do here is actually I can build a data model with this exact query that I can reuse in any other project. So for example, if this is a data set that I'm going to be working with a lot, I can just create a model where I'm cleaning up this column and adding it to the data set, so I don't have to do this transformation in all the projects that I'm working with. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to bring the well, actually, I'm just going to bring this block and this other block. I'm going to copy them. I can just select them and hit Command-C or Control-C to copy them. And now I'm going to go back to the home screen. I'm going to go into models. Here, you can see that we have some models already running. In this case, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it Netflix Clean. And as you can see, this is a bit of a different canvas. This is on purpose because models always need an output to work. I'm going to show you how that works in a second. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the two blocks that I had in my other canvas. So as you can see, we have the titles table here. Let's just check that it works. Perfect. It's the exact same thing. I am now going to connect it directly to the transformation that I was doing earlier. Again, clicking run, checking that everything works. Let's go to the clean countries tab. Exactly, works perfect. And now I'm just going to connect this to the output. Okay, so the output is just what's going to be shown whenever you use this model. So the output is always the exact same query as you have in your last block connected to it. We can just check it by running it and clicking it. As you can see, the clean countries column is there. And I'm just ready to use this in any project that I have. So let's just go back to the other project we had right here. And now the cool thing is, instead of doing this transformation here, since I'm already doing it in model, I can just delete this block and delete this block because it is the data source. I'm just going to go into the data catalog over to the left, click models, and I'm going to use the Netflix clean model that we just created. Again, we're going to check that it works, open the inspector, click run. Everything should be the same. We see the clean countries column over here, and I'm just going to connect it to the where block where I was already filtering this. I don't need to make any other changes. And now the cool thing is that instead of doing the transformation here, I can just move this to the top and just connect directly from the same filter that I was doing. If I just execute everything from the top, so again, clicking Option or Alt in Windows and clicking play, you can see that the data set still works and that I'm able to analyze the data based on the first country that we saw in that array. So that's what models are used for. In the future, we're gonna integrate directly with DBT so that instead of our own models, you're gonna see your own DBT models right in Latitude. And eventually you'll also be able to create those models directly in DBT integrated with the Git repo that you guys have. Go, more questions. Will this session be recorded? Yes. We're recording it and we will publish it in a few days. Okay, yeah, actually didn't show this. This is some other recurrent question that we usually get. That's how does the AI assistant work? And this is a very good point because this is one of the coolest features we have, honestly. In order to show you how it works, I'm gonna do a very simple example. I'm just gonna go over to the right side. I'm gonna use the same model that we just created just to show you how it works. And I'm gonna create a code block directly connected to it. So in this code block, you might have noticed that we have an AI command bar down here. This is where you can interact with the AI assistant. So in this case, let's just do a very simple aggregation. Let's just group all titles by type, for example. I'm just going to hit enter. It's going to process my request. What this is doing behind the scenes is just sending the data model that you're working with, so all of the columns like ID, title, type, etc., in a prompt to GPT-4 in this case, well, GPT-4 Turbo, so that it has the context of the data set you're working with, so you don't have to copy and paste the columns into ChatGPT to get the queries or anything like that. It already works behind the scenes for you. And in this case, it's just generating the query as I asked. You can notice that it's counting the titles instead of the rows. That's because we have a column called title that I can just easily change this to star sign, for example. And I think this is gonna work. Title count. Let's see. Okay, perfect. So here's the distribution, and now I can just add this to any visualization or chart that I want. You can also ask it to do changes for you. So for example, let's see that, I don't know, what can we do? Let's say that instead of grouping by type, I want to group by release year, for example. So these are very simple queries, but it can do like really complex stuff. So I recommend that you try it on your own. But this is just a very quick way to just change one column for another. In this query, I would have made it manually, but just to show the edition properties of the AI assistant, I'm just going to click Insert, hit OK. And then as you can see, the data set is grouped by release year instead of type. So very easy. And one last thing about the AI assistant that's really cool is that if you make any mistakes in any query, or if it even produces a query with mistakes so that it fails, let's say, for example, that instead of release, you wrote release, you hit play. Obviously, it gives me an error because the column release year doesn't exist. Instead of going and try to fix it myself, there's a new button here that says fix code. So what this is going to do is just, this is going to tell GPT-4 that this is the error we're getting from executing the query, and we're requesting it to fix it. So I'm just going to click the button. It's going to process again, and it's going to come back with a fix for my query. So in this case, you can see that it's using the proper name for this column. I'm just going to insert it, click play again, and there you go. My query is fixed. That's it. Are there any more questions that you want me to answer? Maybe we'll have some more recurrent ones. Oh, and another thing we didn't cover is how references to blocks work from the code block. This is quite an advanced feature. So if you notice, instead of writing the exact name of the table that I'm trying to access or the model or anything like that, I'm using this weird syntax that we have here. This is very similar to how I interpolated variables earlier. So in this case, what this means, and I can show you from a new code block. This is how it works. So basically, you can use this pattern to reference any blocks that are connected to this one. So for example, if I were to not connect it here, but maybe I connect it here and I have another block that does something else. Let's just say that this is another query that does something else. I can connect it to the code block. And now in this code block, if I reference bracket $1, that means the first input. So you'll have to write the name of the block or the table. If I were to change this to $2, it means the second input, and it goes from left to right. This is very important to keep in mind because since in Latitude, what you do is you split your analysis and your transformations in multiple blocks. The way to reference the parent from a code block is just like this, by order of input. Apart from this, you can also reference directly by name if you want to make sure that when the input changes, the query still works. So you can do that the same way we did with the variables in the word block. And I can just copy the name, for example, custom query 6, and paste it here. So this is equivalent to this other thing we had before. So $2. These are the same. Cool. I don't know if we have any more questions. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. Another recurrent question. Do I need to invite other team members to share a dashboard? Not at all. So as I covered earlier, if I just copy and paste this URL right here and share it with anybody that's invited to my workspace, I can invite people actually from settings. I didn't cover that. So you can go into members and you can see all the people invited to your workspace right there. But if, for example, I don't want to invite people to my workspace because I don't want them to access all of my data and so on, the easiest way to do that is just to go into the view you want to share, click the share button up here, and just click or copy this link, and this will share this view with somebody that doesn't have access to your workspace, and they won't have access to any of your other data or projects or views or any other canvases. You can also share or embed specific charts that you have built. So for example, let's say that I want to share this specific chart with someone else, or I want to embed it into a Notion document or any other tool. I can just select it, click share from the canvas, and then I can just copy the image. I can embed a live view of this blog. So let's say, for example, that I want to share it with the entire web. I'm just going to copy this link, paste it right here. And as you'll see, we only get a view of the actual chart. And you can embed this again into any Notion document or any other tool that you're using. So that's cool. Awesome. So I think that's all. If there are any more rock questions, please make sure to ask them in the next 10 seconds. Otherwise, thank you all so much for attending this webinar. I hope it was useful to get an understanding of how Latitude works. We will hope you try it out and let us know your feedback. That's always super useful to improve the product. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, and see you in the next one.